Previously on the Tony Kornheiser Show.
So they take me over to one of the counters, counter 13, which I like as a number because my birthday is 13. I'm very happy about this.
Right.
And a guy introduces himself. He says, "My name is Mr. Ralston." And I say, "Hi, I'm Tony Kornheiser." And the next thing out of his mouth is this. "Man, the ghost of Dwayne Wade bit you."
Oh, so now you know you're set.
Yeah.
What?
Now you know you're set.
I'm in.
Yeah, you're
I'm
right.
in at this point.
great.
I'm walking out with cash money at this point.
The Tony Kornheiser Show is on now.
Alrighty then, we are live at Chatter where we serve breakfast and we have got a good crowd to partake of such. We're at the corner of Wisconsin Avenue Northwest, Jennifer Streets Northwest, in Friendship Heights in Washington, D.C. We are full service and for profit, by the way. Gene McManus is here. Gary Braun is here. Michael Kornheiser is here. Nigel will run the board and do news. Special guest today, Jim Miller is here.
Yay.
Wow.
Gretchen Wu is here.
Wow.
Scott from Elon is here with his family, and it's his birthday. Happy birthday to Scott.
Happy birthday, Scott.
Let us do the thing that makes this show so terrible. We read the mail. Roy Mathewson
Let's do that
writes,
first.
"I'm a loyal little
For all
who would
your new
greatly
listeners.
appreciate." Yeah,
Like
why
there are
did-
two mailbags now.
Why do we want any
That's
listeners?
right.
If you could sign the enclosed card and send it back to my wife, Stacy is celebrating her 38th birthday on May 8th. It would thrill me to no end if she would receive a card from you. And although she's not a little when the card arrives, she will look at me, and wonder what the hell is wrong with me. So that's very good. We have an invite here. Dear Dr. Tony Hoff-Waff, wanted to extend an invitation to my daughter's wedding in California. Pre-ceremony golf at Sandpiper Golf Course in Santa Barbara. Michael, are you familiar with Sandpiper?
I am not.
Suits provided by Indochino in the Beverly Hills store. Outstanding staff. Thanks for the
look
laughs.
nice.
This is from Dave Serrano. Lauren Serrano and Trevor Titus are getting married on the 27th of April, which is next Saturday in Santa Barbara,
next
California.
Friday, in fact.
Next Friday, is that what it is? Okay, so we have to sign that. Signing cards is okay. I know how to use my right hand. Here's a piece of paper from Peter. "I would appreciate it if you read this on the air, since it's pretty much the only reason I bought these things. Any other littles in Manhattan, Kansas, not Manhattan, New York, are welcome to come to my house after the ceremony where we will be serving breakfast." This is Kansas State University announces that Peter Mark, I guess it's Oprelt. Does that look like Oprelt to you?
Sure.
Oprelt is a candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Science in Economics, and the commencement exercises are Saturday, May 12th. I hope I got that right.
Nice
Half the time I
Wildcat
get it
stationery there.
Yeah. From Robert Weissert. "Would you please wish my older brother, Will Weissert, a happy 41st birthday sometime after April 20th. Is today April 20th?
Today's April 20th,
Yes.
so
Okay.
technically we're
Sorry.
after it.
Will is a long-term AP reporter in Austin, Texas, and a longer-time Little who introduced me to the radio show before the podcast. I tried to get him a birthday shout-out for 40 last year when he became a man, but my email didn't make the cut. This year I'm going all out. I've included a bevy of Sky Bars. Yes, we got about 10 Sky Bars. I will also be making my first pilgrimage to Chatter on Tuesday, April 23rd, hopefully to pick up the birthday card I've enclosed if you and the gang will be nice enough to sign it. So this is another thing we have to sign, which is
Right.
fine. And then we got a Happy Holidays card from the Hinders.
What holidays?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what holiday.
Every day's a holiday at Chatter.
From Christian,
Arbor
Amy,
Day,
Freddie,
rapidly
Evan, and
approaching.
Audrey. I don't know.
Did a kid maybe make a drawing for us? Is that what?
Sending you a happy NBA NHL playoff card.
Oh, there you
I
go.
hope it reaches you before the Wizards and the Caps have been eliminated. I figured you enjoyed the card more than my neighbor who never received it since we got lazy. Also enjoy the drawing for my non-masculine child, and please share on News Channel 8. So it's a shout out to JP and Windsor Locks.
Oh, lovely drawing.
Yeah, it's very lovely. And Windsor Locks and Antoine in Glendon. So this is nice. I didn't realize
Is that Windsor Locks, Connecticut?
I would assume. I didn't realize that this was a holiday, that the playoffs were necessarily a
Well,
holiday.
it's a holiday in the sense
Wasn't aware.
that typically the Caps will be off soon.
They're not. Okay, so let's start the show.
Yeah.
Because they're not. Okay, because they tied it up.
Yes.
For the fourth time in a row. Somebody on this show, and I think it was me, said the other day that the least effective home court advantage is in hockey
Yes.
of the
Yes.
four major sports. And this is proven in this series where all visiting team wins every game. This game was different than the previous three because it did not go into overtime. This was a laugher for the Caps. They are now tied. They're going to come back home. They should win. They always should win this series. They are the highest seeded team. You're looking at me, Michael, with
Well,
skepticism immediately.
Because you call it a laugher. When that game got to 3-1, who wasn't a little bit nervous that it was quickly going to be 3-2 for the last 10 minutes?
Well, I thought it looked like a different Caps team.
It did.
And
They've got hope. They've made the decision. The decision was forced on them in goal, but they've made the decision. They're rolling with this guy for the rest of the time.
So
That's
this is I'm no hockey analyst, as you know, and this is going to sound like something a hockey analyst might say because it's stupid.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe it was maybe just Holtby in that white uniform with all the white pads on the white ice, but he looked big
Looked
in
like
the
the
goal.
Michelin
Like
Man.
he filled up the goal, you know,
and he
and just
made it
looking
look
at him, it's like it's going to get hard.
effortless.
Yeah.
He was gliding around down there.
He looked really good. So maybe Trotzy knew what he was doing. Although this is this is how they do it.
And then they go to Pittsburgh and
They
they
crush you. They crush
Right?
you multiple
They get
times
Pittsburgh
in
now.
game
They
one.
get Pittsburgh. Jim Miller very upset because the Philadelphia Flyers are going right down the drain, and they're being outscored 7,000 to 1. And right, go to Mike.
It's like football scores.
In our championship season. I mean, we
Right,
got the
because you had
Sixers going.
Villanova,
Right.
you had the
Eagles.
Eagles.
Sixers
We're
looking
still
good.
drafting off. I mean, the Flyers need to come through. We got to,
Well, they're not going to come through.
Don't
They're
get
not.
greedy.
I'm seriously. In the games they've lost 7-0, 5-1, 5-0. They're
Well, their purpose is to remind us that we're Philadelphia.
that's right. You know, but you've had far too good a run in Philadelphia this year
We're-
with the Eagles
we're-
and Villanova.
we're
By the
loving it.
way, Villanova, just to bring this up to date, Villanova is now on the verge of losing 4 players from their championship team. Okay. That happens at places like North Carolina, and Duke loses freshmen every year, and Kentucky
Kentucky.
loses.
Right.
But the mystique of Jay Wright
Yeah.
is that Jay Wright finds diamonds in the rough. He molds them into something. They're pressurized, and then they're fabulous,
And they
stay
stay.
3 and 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's not happening now. And you know what happens when all your players begin to go to the NBA and you're Jay Wright? You go to the
You
NBA.
leave. Yep.
You go to the NBA.
Agents are more persuasive than coaches now in the NBA.
That's how that works. So, like, for those, and we all love Jay Wright, but there's a shelf life. Once you get it, Jay Wright can't recruit the people at Mike Krzyzewski and Bill Self and John Calipari. They won't go there. One and done's really, that's not attractive to them. And so if they all leave, Jay Wright will, I think he will.
And he
soon
strikes
follow.
me as exactly the type of guy who shouldn't go to the NBA.
And he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to. But when you dangle, when you go 4 years, $30 million, very tough not to take that. Very tough. Speaking of basketball, I guess the ghost of Dwayne Wade wasn't that effective last night.
No.
Because he was 2 for 10, and he had 8 points, and he got in a fight pretty early in the game. And the 76ers playing Joel Embiid. In the fourth quarter, the 76ers outscored the home team Miami 32-14. In the fourth quarter, when the games are decided. And they won by 20. And Ben Simmons had 19 points and 12 rebounds and 7 assists. And Joel Embiid,
4 steals.
whose
He
mask
filled
was
up.
falling off on every play. They must have 50 masks.
He did not seem comfortable with the mask,
Who
although
would
his
be? Who
play
is? Who's
his play didn't suggest as much.
23 points and 7. They're going to beat. I had to eat this from Wilbon for a long time. I don't have to anymore. The 76ers are going to win in 5 or 6 at the most. They're going to win. They're better. They're better. Miami isn't very good. It's not.
I
They're
had
okay.
to focus my energy on the Caps
So you didn't watch anything
because
else?
I felt that someone should be awake to talk Steve Sands off the ledge.
Well, but he's fine now. He
I
didn't-
know,
didn't even
I
get-
know, but I
didn't even
just
get a
felt that
text.
I had to be there to administer first aid.
Didn't
if
even
they
get a
lost.
text from
Okay.
Sansi.
I know.
It was disappointing.
Yeah, that is
He's taking this in stride.
Yeah.
He wanted to kill himself when they went down 0-2, and now nothing's
I was
wrong.
there for him.
Nothing's wrong. Amazing. In other NBA games, the Pelicans, I believe I had this too. They beat Portland. They're up 3-0. They're going to win this because Anthony Davis is the best player on the court, and they have an interesting circumstance. They have Boogie Cousins as well. They probably don't need both of them. They could probably trade Boogie Cousins to the Washington Wizards for Bradley Beal. They could probably make that trade, a trade that helps both teams. Not that I'm suggesting it, although I think I just did. I think I just
Now,
suggested it.
doesn't Boogie Cousins have a reputation for
Oh,
being
yeah.
a team spoiler?
In all ways. But
Yeah.
he also played with John Wall at Kentucky.
Okay.
And so that would
But
be
I'm afraid
that would be the
you might be
last-
getting into Gilbert Arenas territory.
Oh,
No,
I
not
don't-
that bad.
bad. No, nobody's that bad.
Okay.
Nobody's that bad. And the Warriors beat the Spurs. Greg Popovich did not coach in the game because of the passing of his wife. The Warriors beat that series is over as well.
Yeah.
That series is over.
That was over before it started.
Yeah.
Let me just say you mentioned Anthony Davis being the best player there, and that's I don't think anyone would dispute that for the Pelicans. But Rajon Rondo has
great playoff player.
Yeah, he's been a difference maker for them. And so who would they? I'm trying to think I'll have to put up. I want to see who they would play next. But that team that's an intriguing team to me, the Pelicans. But Cousins is done for the playoffs, right?
Oh yeah, he's done for the playoffs. There is something in the NBA that is going on now, and you wouldn't know this if you only paid attention to Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs because he's been terrible. But there are 4 guys in the league who are very athletic and very, very large. Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Karl Anthony Towns, and the kid from Milwaukee. And they could change. Right now, what you have is jump shooting teams, and everything is worked around the perimeter to get a 3-point shot. Nobody values 2-point shots anymore. And these big men, particularly Anthony Davis, can shoot threes. They can shoot threes.
Well, and Towns can too.
They're so
Antetokounmpo
big and
cannot.
athletic that we could see centers again, which we haven't.
Be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be
haven't
cool.
seen.
I'd
It would
like
be
that.
sort of old school basketball.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Also, Neil in Rockville, I hope you enjoy these Passover fruit slices. We should pass these on to Trayon White.
Oh, sure.
Oh, no.
To the councilman.
yeah.
Not only because they are better than Rehoboth Beach fruit slices, but because you are not forced to deal with a watermelon flavor, but they are arguably even better than Chuckles. Because in addition to the sugary jelly middle and the sprinkled sugar on top, they also have a condensed rind of even more sugar around the sides.
So how did that gift fall out of the opening mailbag segment, but
Yeah.
then sneak back into
I don't know.
the
I just
opening
sort
segment?
of saw it, and I knew I had to fill a little bit of time.
Yeah, well, it did
You
it.
know,
Did it wonderfully.
Does Gretchen want to get on the mic? Gretchen,
Oh God.
Gretchen, come on, just
Say
get
hi.
on the
Say hi.
microphone. Say
Say
hi
hi.
in
Little
say hi
slut
in
Gretchen
Latin.
will.
Say hi in Latin to the people.
Salvete omnes.
It's so wonderful.
Oh, by the way, it's
You were here last night?
Yes, yeah,
Tried
we-
to build a crowd?
Yeah, and I don't have the star
Yeah.
power. But we did have some nice littles come by. It was great to see Neil in Rockville.
Yeah.
Rob Stronach stopped by, and he brought by
Rob
this
Stronick brought the plate hanger.
plate hanger.
Oh,
Great.
good.
For the
Yes, we're
Wilbon's
excited
chili
about that.
plate.
Good.
Bobby
Which
Gro-
everyone's going to want.
Oh, yeah, it is tremendous plate.
Bobby Gottfried was here.
We have a
Bobby
challenge
Gottfried was
coin
here.
update, though, don't
yeah,
we, Nige?
Bobby Gottfried was here, Mark Schaefer was here, and I want to pay special tribute to Nelson, the bartender, because Miss Wu is a little under the weather. She said, would it be too much of a trouble to get a hot toddy? And Nelson whipped it up for her. So
That's
he's
good.
a great bartender. That's the kind of service you get
That's
here.
what we get here.
At
Yeah.
Chatter.
When we interview people to be bartenders, we ask them questions. Can you make the following things? Hot toddy, very high on the
Yeah,
list.
Pim's Cup.
Can you make that?
How, did you ask him how would you get a giraffe on an airplane?
Yeah.
And some.
What do you got?
So we handed out some
By the way,
challenge
can
coins.
I mention about Simon the Sea Cat?
Oh, yes.
When does that hit the airwaves?
It's actually a book.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a book.
So,
Because that was written under your nom de plume, Mark Stern.
Although,
Yeah, that's
although
just-
since
that's-
that is
my
how he
alias.
writes. That's what he uses, his nom de plume.
although
Yes.
since Tony has offered, maybe you will have Tony read the audiobook. And it could
Oh,
hit
no,
the
no, no,
airwaves.
I'm not gonna-
Oh, that
no.
would
Isn't
be
that
charming.
what you just? I thought that's where you were
No,
going.
Nothing but listeners.
Yeah.
It should be, I think, within a month. I have to, because I'm self-publishing, so I have to sort of set up all that. But this was
Sew it together
Yeah,
yourself?
the copy that I have is sort of like I have to go through that and make
Letterpress.
very final
Self-publishing is great. They usually stop with me on self-aggrandizing. They just go to that one, and it's just
Yeah,
sort of
so,
done. Self-absorbed. The A words.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that it'll be available within about a month. That's my plan. I have some work
Simon
left
the
to
Sea
do.
Cat.
Simon the Sea
Not
Cat.
to be confused with Salty the Sea Cat.
Salty
No.
the Sea Cat. I think that had I spoken with you years ago,
Isn't salty a great word?
it is a great
It's
word.
just a great
It is.
word.
Maybe it was Simon's
Salty
cousin.
and Randy are two of the greatest words in the. And they're not used as much anymore as they
really
should
No,
be.
that's true.
You
They
know.
really aren't. So-
and you're allowed to use them. They're not like other words
Right.
which you
They-
can't use.
they have not
the
been
list of
outlawed.
which is long.
Austin
and getting
Powers
all the time.
brought Randy back a little
Yeah,
bit.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the?
So we handed out the TK show challenge coins last night to the
Really?
littles that came by, and it says on it. And I'm trying to read this.
says
to the
in Latin, send us a big box of that.
well, mite ad me.
Didn't Miss Wu
arga-
translate this for us?
Yes, but now a closer translation has revealed that this probably means send me a big coffin of that.
Coffin.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Very fitting for the
Much
show.
larger.
Very
So we're
appropriate.
very excited.
Can fit
about
more
that,
stuff
yes.
in it, and we can use
Ingleside.
it when you're done.
All right, so we'll get out of here. When we come back, Jason LaConfora will join us.
That's right.
Later in the show, Jim Miller will talk all about his podcast origins. There is some rumor that he did one about the PTI show, and people tell me it's very, very good. I don't watch myself or listen to myself, but I heard it was pretty good. So we'll be back. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the Harry's ad, and it always asks us, what do you love most about shaving with Harry's? And I always say that love is too strong a word for that. I mean, I do this on a habitual basis, and I'm happy to do it. And the blades work, and the razor works, and I'm happy to do it. Love, as Tina Turner would say, what's love got to do with it? Harry stands behind the quality of their blades, but they know that switching razors isn't an easy decision. Now, let me tell you what's not an easy decision. Moving your home is not an easy decision a lot of times. Right, that's,
Take the Social Security up front or stretch it out.
Yeah. These are not easy decisions.
Downsizing to Ingleside.
Right. Switching razors, it's not an easy decision, but it's not one of the 10 hardest either. So they created a trial offer. Claim yours by going to harrys.com/Tony K. Harry's founders were fed up with overpaying for expensive razors with unnecessary features. They knew a great shave comes down to great blades made with sharp, durable steel that lasts. That's why they bought a factory that's been making some of the highest quality blades in the world for over 95 years. Jim, on Origins, do you read ads?
I do.
Fantastic, isn't it?
Brutal.
Never thought you'd do it.
Some of the same ads.
I was 6'4" and blonde
you.
before I started doing it.
By selling directly to you over the internet, Harry's can offer their blades at a price much lower than the leading brand. Just $2 per blade compared to the $4 or more. There's a quality guarantee. If you don't love your shave, you let Harry's know within 30 days, they'll give you a full refund. You can get a $13 value trial set that comes with everything you need for a close, comfortable shave, including a weighted ergonomic handle, a 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and trimmer blades, a rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. Listeners of this high-quality podcast can redeem their trial set. You can get this for free at harrys.com/Tony K. Make sure you go to Harrys, HARRYS.com, Tony K, to redeem your offer, and let them know I sent you to help support the show. Yeah. Okay.
This is the Tony Kornheiser Show. Tony Kornheiser Show.
This comes from Eric Johnson, who writes, "My name is Eric Johnson, a loyal Little for many years. I grew up in Bethesda, moved around the country for a while before settling down in Austin, Texas. Also known as the live music capital of the world, completely trademarked by the city of Austin, and a lie, not that I'm bitter or anything. But my dear friends Mike and Susie Litwin live in Austin, Texas, with their daughter Angie, who's a law professor at UT. He worked at the University of Texas at Austin and currently at the University of Texas System, where I got a challenge coin from our chancellor, retired Admiral William McRaven, so eat it, Saliza. I've been producing music since 1994. When I was living in Albuquerque, I formed a band called Ruined, which I still use today, even though it's just been myself for a long time. Anyway, the track is called, we don't know, Nigel and I don't know. It's either called Trust No V or Trust Number 5.
We think it's the latter, right?
Yeah, I originally wrote this in 1996. I've since reworked it with new gear and software. Soundtrack music, hope you enjoy it. If any Central Texas loyal littles want to create some TK tracks, I can be reached at Eric the Metal Dad. The Metal Dad.
The Metal Dad.
METALDAD on Twitter. Boy, I hope that Michael's not a metal dad. I hope Bootsy doesn't grow up to be a metalhead. I really don't want that.
You never know.
Jason Lockenfor of CBS Sports joins us now. I could go crazy about the schedule, but I actually don't care. And nobody really cares about the schedule.
Wait. Don't you want to talk about if you were doing Monday Night Football,
Monday night schedule?
what your schedule would be?
Well,
would you take a bus? Would you take a plane?
Well, I'll
Would you
just
take a
say
train?
this, that after all these years of Monday Night Football getting largely bad games, they open with the Jets at Detroit, which is
Miserable.
not just a bad game. It's a right, Jason? Who wants to see that?
It's a rough one. Look, the NFL and Howard Katz, who has the unenviable task of putting a lot of this schedule grid together, they're serving a lot of masters now. You've got Fox now, the new guy saying, yeah, we'll take a shot on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah.
So, you want to really kind of placate them, and I think there's been a sense over the last couple of years that the 1 p.m. window has really been sort of bastardized. And if we want to get people in the habit of watching football all day, maybe we need to incentivize that a little bit more. And ESPN isn't exactly playing footsie with the league lately, and Monday night has lost some cachet.
Yeah.
And the guy who was making $10 million a year or whatever, or $6 million a year to broadcast games, is now making $10 million a year to coach them. So I have not looked at the entire ESPN slate, but I'm imagining
some of the games are good.
That
they got
there's a few
New England,
a few
Pittsburgh,
good games,
I think.
but that if you're going to compare Thursday and Sunday and Monday that Monday's probably on the short end of
And the deal is coming up.
Yeah, the deals, and we may see a complete reshuffling of those people that broadcast. I mean, we may end up getting the Netflix people and the Amazon people and things like that. Right? It may be
Facebook
different.
Live, whomever. That's the new frontier. Yeah.
So I'll stay away from schedules. Let's start with Tom Brady. I'm assuming that this story about Tom Brady not being completely committed to playing in 2018, I'm assuming it comes from somebody close to Brady, because it couldn't come from the Patriots, because if the Patriots were concerned about that, they never would have traded Jimmy Garoppolo. Or am I wrong?
Well, I mean, look, he's got 2 years left on his contract, and he's been telling people for years that he's going to play till he's 45, and he still has Tom House under contract, who is his sort of throwing motion guru, kinesiologist, the former Major League pitcher. And he still has his controversial trainer under contract, and he's going to go throw with, Edelman and Gronk and these guys in a couple of months. And I don't even know what that story was. I mean, I read it twice, and it's like 4 guys close to Brady saying, well, everybody in the world thinks he's going to play, but he hasn't told me yet. I mean, look, there's a lot of passive-aggressive stuff going on right now in Patriots Nation, without a doubt. I don't think they're concerned about Brady playing this year, but they need they've been trying for a while now to have that next man up and to have somebody groomed and ready for when Brady's done. And Brady now could be done a year from now or 2 years from now. I mean, they're going to have to call his agent, Don Yee, and have a conversation about that contract. And they're going to have to make Rob Gronkowski, paid on par with the Travis Kelce's of the world. He's going to have to be a top 3 compensated wide receiver, and Bob Kraft's going to have to smooth over some egos and get some guys together and try to get them to all play nice for one more year. But the quarterback thing, I think, Tony, is whether any of this story came out or not, the moment they made the Brandon Cooks trade, the people I know and trust in that building were telling me, Bill's doing this to make a splash. Bill isn't doing this to sit at 23 and hope there's a quarterback we like who's sitting there. Bill is doing this to have the ammunition that if a quarterback gets to a spot where he sees the value there, he has the requisite pieces to go and make a big-time football trade to get him. Now, they're not going to force it. They're not going to give up 3 drafts to get Baker Mayfield at 2nd overall or whatever. But Rosen, whomever, gets into the teens, gets past 9 into 10, then their antennas are going to be up. If they, maybe it ends up just being Mason Rudolph at 23. I don't think that's how they'll go, but they're very much in the quarterback market.
Can I ask the obvious question about all of this Brady stuff? Why would they publicly go after his trainer, his private trainer? Why would they do these things in a public manner to basically say to Tom Brady, we're bigger than you, and you're going to have to eat it for a while? Why?
I don't know. Bill Belichick has many positives, many things he does, many characteristics he has that set him apart from arguably any other coach in NFL history. That in a way that helps them win. He also is an awkward human being. He has a perverse sense of relationships at times. His ego can absolutely run amok, and he is a demagogue in many ways. And I guess there's a part of him, how he's wired, who feels like that's how it has to be for all the positive stuff to work. I have to have this mentality. I have to be this sort of brooding anti-hero most of the time in order for all this other stuff to work correctly. And he's been wearing that hoodie and playing that role for a long time, and there's still a lot of the same individuals there. And you can understand that after a while it gets old. I mean, most places things get old after 3 to 5 years, and they're recycling coaches. He's on his 4th cycle. If we're going to say 5 years is a long run in the NFL, he's closer to 20 years than 5. I don't know, Tony. I don't know that there's a rational explanation for some of his quirks and mannerisms and the way he will engage with people, even the greatest quarterback in NFL history at times. I guess all I could say is it's part of the Belichick package.
Yeah.
And he's thoroughly convinced that this is how it has to be. Maybe there's some part of him who just feels like, oh, well, maybe Brady is a little complacent now, and maybe this isn't the guy to get Tom Brady to age 45. Maybe he feels threatened by this guy in some way, and so he lashes out.
They don't want more people to go to guys like this. It's a loss of control. It's
all teams don't want this, but you don't pick this fight publicly.
Right.
That's they're trying to send a message to everybody. Don't do it, and if you do, there's going to be some collateral damage. This is a nightmare for organizations.
Where is Des Bryant going?
You know, if I'm Des Bryant, I'm waiting until after the draft, to be honest with you. This is not a very good wide receiver class. Maybe a couple of them go in the first round just because of need, but there aren't a ton of difference makers out there. And some of these teams, like New England, have a lot of needs right now, and like Seattle, and maybe they don't get a receiver in the draft who's necessarily they have super high hopes for. You know, because if I'm Des Bryant and I'm doing a prove-it contract somewhere, I want to be able to win. I want to be playing in high-profile games. I want to be on a team that has a quarterback. And then I'm there for a year, and maybe I get one more, better size bite at the apple.
Yeah.
That's not out there for him right now. He wants to be with the Giants. He's got a close relationship with Odell Beckham. He's made it very clear to people around him from the moment, Jerry Jones said, via con Dios, that the Giants is where he'd want to be. I think Dave Gettleman has some trepidation about what that receivers room might look like. And
yes.
He can't completely bank on Odell Beckham himself at this point. But with Brandon Marshall being released, I'd say it's at least a possibility. The problem for Des Bryant is he's got to understand, and it's a difficult conversation to be had, and I'm not sure his representatives are having it with him. This is like Adrian Peterson a year ago. You're no longer the hammer, you're kind of the nail, and everybody's going to pick apart everything you don't do that well anymore, and they think you're closer to the end, to the beginning. And just like Adrian Peterson was not going to go anywhere last year and be a feature back or get a ton of carries, Des, you're not the one or the two really anymore. You're more like a 2/3. We're going to use you in the slot, like Anquan Bolden at the end of his career. You can't separate anymore. You think you can,
but you can't.
And you're not going to really win one-on-one on the outside. But if they get you in the slot against a smaller corner, we're going to throw you lobs, jump balls, 10 to 12-yard stuff, help us in the red zone. We'll feed you, move the chains, but, you're not, your days of beating guys, in press man coverage on the outside are over.
Speaking of being the nail and not the hammer, would you like to explain Robert Griffin and your squad now in Baltimore?
It's not my squad. I don't get it, Tony. No. I don't get it. No one really here in Baltimore gets it. There was, just judging from the people who we interact with from our podcast and just living here and knowing a lot of Ravens fans, there was a collective cringe when they signed him. I mean, it was you could almost feel this like people just completely almost sort of creeped out. Like, really? Like, this is the answer? This why? You stuck your Bisciotti. You licked your thumb, stuck it in the air for 2 months last year, and got involved in this Kaepernick thing when nobody knew you were. We all knew you weren't going to sign him anyway. And then a year later, you're bringing in Griffin, who hasn't played in forever and who just brings drama with him everywhere. And if the idea was we can't have a distraction as a backup quarterback, why are you signing this guy? And then 2 days later, they put microphones in front of him. People are like, no, we don't want to hear it. No. Like, even the media was like, really? We got to go out there and talk to this? Like, come on. He's not even going to make the team. If he does make the team, it's an indictment on your draft. So I don't understand it. My hunch is it's not totally unrelated to the Kaepernick thing, in that they signed this guy within like 24 hours of them being deposed in the Kaepernick suit. A year ago, they were talking about Kaepernick and Griffin at the same time when they were sort of publicly ruminating about, which quarterback should we sign when Flacco was hurt. And I think by them signing Griffin, it's their way of saying, well, look, if we had signed a quarterback last year, it would have been Griffin for football reasons anyway, because we really like Rob. And look, a year later, we signed him.
Yeah.
So, but knowing it's a no-frills, no guarantee, 1 year, $1 million contract, and also knowing there's a damn high probability they're taking a quarterback in the second day of this draft who will back up Flacco, and if he's any good, replace him a year from now. So I do believe there's a public relations component to this.
So I asked you where Des Bryant would go because he's free to go anywhere. Nick Foles not free at the moment to go anywhere he wants, and I guess you have to wait to see the physical capabilities of Carson Wentz, who's better than Nick Foles. But, Jason, in your mind, will Nick Foles stay in Philadelphia this full season, or will they deal him?
I think they'll deal him, and I think they're pretty comfortable with Carson Wentz. It's just a matter of getting maximum value for him. And it may be a situation where, it's better to wait because injuries will occur. There'll be a quarterback who slips and tears his Achilles or tears his ACL during OTAs, and there'll be a couple more who get hurt in training camp. It's just, unfortunately, the nature of the beast. And Howie Roseman need only think back to 2 August ago, right? Late August, when Teddy Bridgewater had a horrific injury in camp, and the Vikings thought they were going to be a good team, and he got, what turned out to be a 1 and a 3 for Sam Bradford, who's never healthy. So I can understand him saying, look, they're about to draft 6 of these guys in the first round. The value for Foles isn't going to be there right now. But a team who thinks they have a quarterback who then finds out they don't, that's where maybe we get maximum value. And in the meantime, we continue to monitor Carson Wentz. Not that they think, look, can anybody guarantee he'll be great for week 1? No. But by October, November, he should be, doing better. The first year back from this injury, he's never going to be, 1,000%. But he doesn't have to be 1,000% for them to still function at a pretty high level. So I do think he'll be dealt, just understanding Howie Roseman and how he thinks, and knowing they only have 1 pick in the first 3 rounds and all the picks he gave up for Carson Wentz and how he wants to keep this thing together long term. Nick Foles could be a very valuable chip for him.
Plug your podcast.
Thanks, Tone. This week on the BMO Show, Be More Opinionated podcast, I actually feel like I shouldn't do this stupid accent because it's a pretty interesting story, hon. But Ian Thomas, a kid from Baltimore, grew up in downtown Baltimore. Really rough story. Lost both parents before he was 10. Raised by his older siblings. Ended up at the University of Indiana catching footballs. We're going to have him on a podcast this week. He's going in the second round of the draft. The Ravens could use him. Maybe the Skins could use him. A great kid. Crazy story. Very inspirational. Check us out, hon, at bmoshow.com.
Where's the dog? Where's the dog?
You know what? We haven't done this in so long. He's sitting here eating. He's just eating his little breakfast.
Respecting the story, maybe, unlike his owner.
That's, you know what? It's more than more than his master right now. But
Thank you, Jason.
Showing a proper sense of reverence.
Hard work week ahead for you with the draft. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Jason.
Hey, thanks, guys. See ya.
Jason Lockenfora, boys and girls. We will take a break. We will come back with news. I am Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the First Leaf ad. The wine tyrant from Tunlaw gets a lot of play on the First Leaf ad. I have now taken notes. We've had 4 bottles of wine.
We have started the rating process.
I have started the rating
We
process.
have started the rating
Right,
process.
I've taken notes.
You take notes, I plug it into the computer.
That's a team
Okay,
effort.
so that's fine. But have you done that yet? Because I've
Yes.
taken notes. Well, you haven't seen my notes.
Well, I've seen your notes for the previous orders.
Oh.
We have about 4 months to catch up on right now.
Oh, I don't remember anything that happened before.
That's why I'm taking care
After
of
the
those.
second glass, it's all vague.
First Leaf is the only online wine club that uses your reviews to make personalized wine selections matched to your taste. The more wine you taste and rate being the important word, the better they customize your box based on the wines you like. When it comes to buying wine, most of our choices are made out of habit. We don't remember how we found our favorites. We just know that when we're at checkout, those same brands and bottles are in our cart every week after week. First Leaf is a new online wine club that's putting a stop to boring wine buying. First Leaf makes tasting and rating great new wines an exciting event. I'm supposed to say I started by answering 3 quick questions about my wine drinking preferences, but Michael, you answered them.
Correct.
You answered them red,
And red.
and
red.
red. I think
Yes,
that was.
it seems
Their
preference.
experts are constantly exploring new wines for me to taste and rate. I got to rate them. First Leaf, the First Leaf introductory 3-pack, which they send you. What's fabulous about that is it's $5. You get all 3 wines for $5, and normally
That's
these
a great
bottles of
deal.
wine go for about $20 a piece, if not more. When my bottles arrived, I'm supposed to say I tasted and rated them online. I tasted them. I did more than taste them. I drank them all, and that so angered the wine tyrant that she put a hold on all new boxes
Right.
before we could siphon off at least 3 bottles to Kate.
Just wait.
How did Kate get?
I don't know. She's the big winner in this. Just wait till the next box, because Liz is already eyeing a Malbec that's on its way.
So she wants that?
Oh, yeah.
First Leaf took these ratings, there are no ratings, and selected new...
There are ratings.
and
We've been in
selected-
trouble because you haven't done the ratings before.
I'm going to do the ratings. I don't want to be
Well,
suspended
it sounds like
from
you're
First Leaf.
doing the
We are
ratings.
doing
Michael's
the
doing
ratings.
the ratings.
And with
Yes.
First Leaf, you never have to worry about spending money on a bad bottle of wine.
Suspended.
They guarantee you'll love the wine. I'll be suspended from First Leaf. You'll love the wine. It could trickle down into ESPN. I'm in real trouble. You'll love the wine you buy, or they'll give you your money back. So try First Leaf Club today, where buying great wine is simple. To get your 3-pack of introductory wine, this is truly only $15.
It's amazing.
Go to tryfirstleaf.com/Tony. That's 3 wines for only $15 on your first order at tryfirstleaf.com/Tony. Experience First Leaf today at tryfirstleaf.com/Tony.
You're listening to The Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is sent to us from Michael Mitchell in London, Ontario. Grateful for the play last month of my daughter's rehearsal track. I'm sending down another track we produced that didn't make the cut on our soon-to-be-released record, which is called All the Way Down. It might show up in Nashville on another artist's record as Jessica has released it to her pals. She's on the Canadian East Coast at the moment, finishing a cross-country tour, 53 dates in total. The new CD release will follow next month. Please check her out at jessicamitchellmusic.com. Regular rotation on Spotify and the rest of the usual streaming sites. Thank you for sharing her sound. She's really quite good.
This is just wonderful.
She's
Beautiful
quite
voice.
good. Michael, when people want to send in their music, how do they do so for us to play it?
Send your music into the show by emailing it to jingles@TonyKornheiserShow.com.
And though we only play a piece of the music now, at the end of the podcast, you can hear the entire song, which is nice. We are selling Chatter T-shirts here right now. We have a big crowd. I want to take advantage of
How much?
only
Today?
12
Today.
Today
only.
and tomorrow, but today,
Possibly
$12 for Chatter T-shirts. And how's the website doing?
We have a great challenge coin available. You can get the official TK Show challenge coin that says, "Send me a coffin of that."
That's right.
In Latin.
We
Right? On
have
the
we
back?
have just put to sleep a small girl, sound asleep, whose father has carted her off.
That's
so
nice. Oh.
if you have children who have sleeping disorders,
Bring them here.
Oh, yeah.
And
Bring
when
them
I
here.
read the mail,
That's right.
they go right to
They go
sleep.
right down.
Nigel, you have some news.
I do. Before I get to the news, I have a couple of things I need to clarify. One, I got the song name wrong for the Silent Critics. I guess it was cut off when they sent it to us. It was Easier Said Than Done, whatever.
Well, that's the Essex.
Yeah, that is the Essex.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, the Easier Said Than
but their
Done.
song's called Easier Said Than Done, and in parentheses, whatever that means. I just identified it as whatever.
Oh, okay.
So it's whatever that means.
That's an
I think it's
unfortunate mistake.
Yeah, so
Whatever.
that means.
Yeah.
And also, I got a great note from the bloke that sent us in the Dropkick Murphys. And he was
Yes.
so grateful for playing it. He said it reminded me
They're
of the time.
pros.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
And he told the story of it was sort of reminded me of when he was backstage and the Dropkick Murphys were playing, and there was a knock on the door, and who was there? Bruce Springsteen.
Really?
With his son. And no entourage, nothing, just came up and wanted to see the show and wanted to meet the band. He said that was about as great a thrill as when they were on the show.
Well, Mitch
yesterday.
Albom will tell you that's the greatest thrill he's ever had in
That
playing
is a
music.
fantastic story.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify all
Good.
of that.
What have you got?
So we will start off. We have a follow up on a news story. You remember the killer,
they
the
got
killer
her.
grandmother? Yes.
They got her
Oh.
because she was leaving a trail in casinos all over the country.
Yes, this is a 56-year-old Lois Rice or Reese, suspected in the deaths of her husband, Minnesota, and then it was she
A
Killed a
lookalike.
lookalike.
A look-alike.
Yeah, and then
Stole
she
her identity.
So she forged her husband's signature on all these checks. Got about $10,000 immediately.
Fat
Gamble.
City, baby. Fat City.
Gamble.
10K.
Went to gamble and then
lost.
It's enough to
left
go
there,
away and stay hidden.
Went to Florida
For a weekend.
Yeah, for an hour or two. Went to Florida.
They got her in Texas.
Yeah, met her, another woman who looked exactly like her. Killed her. They think they killed her. Took all her identification and then was in Texas. I guess sort of around Austin. I'm trying to find the town that she was actually caught in. It was found in South Padre Island,
How'd they catch
Texas. She was at a bar, sitting there, as they say, cool as a cucumber. Had been there for about an hour and a half. Had a drink in her hand.
Rita welcomed her Chatter.
Someone spotted her, I guess, and called the cops? or-
somebody had spotted her because the bartender got a call from the cops and said, "You've
Keep her
got
here."
somebody there." And we're going to be there. And literally said, like 2 seconds later, the cops came in. No really disturbance. Took her out.
Yeah.
I like to think that when they found her, she sat with her back to him and said, "What took you so long?"
Right.
You know?
Right.
But so that is taken care of now.
Thank goodness.
And now we will go. Well, you know what? We'll go to another follow-up story. This is a little bit more local. Well, you mentioned this in the show open, Mr. Tony. DC Council member Trayon White Sr. from Ward 8. This is the bloke that a little while ago, when it was snowing and it's sort of an unseasonable time, he made some reference to like, oh yeah,
Rothschilds
this is the
controlling the weather,
Rothschilds
yeah.
controlling the weather, which I was unfamiliar with
Yeah.
this, but it's
Yeah.
this anti-Semitic sort
Yeah.
of like the Jews control
Conspiracy.
everything. And so obviously he was taken to task for this and said things publicly, you know, like, oh, I've learned a lot from this.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I've met some good Jews.
He
There are a
actually
lot of
said
them.
that. I've
He-
met
he
some
actually-
good
he did-
Jews.
He said that. That's a direct quote.
That is a direct quote. So Now, and what I can, this is me editorializing
Wasn't it
here.
Roy Moore's wife talked about like they know Jews.
Yes.
They had a Jew attorney.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the exact quote. This opportunity has given me the chance to meet a lot of great Jews, a lot of people, a lot of good Jews that I've never had the chance to meet before.
Yeah. Well, they're hard
It's
to
an
find.
awesome experience. And he said those things after being asked 9 different questions and just being on his cell phone.
Yes.
And then asked. So,
Yes,
So,
so
they
he-
took him to visit
So
the
they go-
Holocaust
yeah.
Museum,
Which-
which he completely misread.
Yes.
All of the photographs that he saw, he completely misread.
Yes.
Said, aren't the Nazis protecting? No,
This
they're
woman,
not,
no. And then later, and then he just left. He was
He
supposed
left.
to be for the 90
He was
minutes.
done. He was, look, I
And
leave
he's-
early.
It's
When
heavy.
I go to
It's a heavy
places,
day,
I
in
leave
fairness.
early.
But he said, "Oh yeah, I've got this thing I've got to go
A
to."
thing. He's got a thing.
But he
I
didn't
got
tell
this
me.
thing.
But then, like, they looked around and they said, "Where's the council member?"
Yeah.
And then this great reporter from the Washington Post, I guess it's Peter Jameson, went outside and he's just there on the sidewalk,
Yeah.
hanging
On his
out.
cell phone.
Yeah, and then you'd ask a question, he would pretend to be on the cell phone.
These
and
are
not
foolish
speak.
actions by this particular man.
Yes,
Oh.
and
He appears to be
Embarrassing.
foolish.
And one of his people on his staff who was part of the tour that stayed for the whole thing, when they showed the part about the ghetto in Warsaw being bricked up, said, "Oh, so that's like a gated community,
Just like
right?"
a gated
Yeah.
community. It's
No.
just like a gated community.
Yeah, the rabbi who
Absolutely.
was with him said, "quote Yeah, I wouldn't call it a gated community, more like a prison."
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
So-
is also a gated community.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a community of-
It just makes my head explode
Yeah,
when
well-
people see these things and say these things.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, so Ward 8, people that vote in Ward 8. I
He's
would like you-
elected.
Yes,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there you go. And I know this was a shock to you yesterday, Mr. Tony. Ryan Price out after the 3-15 start of the Reds. I think our exact reaction was, I'm sorry, who's Ryan Price?
It's Brian Price. It's not
Oh,
even
there you
Ryan
go.
Price.
There you go.
It's Brian Price,
Sorry, Brian.
who was apparently their manager for the last 4.5 years, who's never been at 500. They had the worst start, or the second worst start they've had in 100 years, and they fired him. And there's 2 amazing things here. First of all, I think it's an act of humanity to fire him because he wasn't any good and they're terrible and let him go away. Nobody knew he was the manager outside of Cincinnati. Nobody knows his name. Do you know who took over for him?
Yes, I do.
Jim Riggleman.
Oh my gosh.
Jim
remember him.
Riggleman
I'm laughing
is the
for a
guy
reason.
who
Yeah.
quit.
Walked away from
He
the Nats.
walked away. He was the man. There are 30 jobs in the world managing Major League Baseball teams.
Yes.
And he had one, and he quit.
Yes.
He just quit. I never thought he'd get another job.
And not just quit. I believe, as the legend has it, went to Caddy's in Bethesda and just sat at the bar and drank all day. It was like, okay.
That's right.
I
Yeah,
just,
I mean, do I
I
remember
just
that correctly?
never,
Or was that
ever
maybe?
thought.
Are you conflating that with Bowden?
No. Well, he might have done that anyway.
I never thought he'd get another job as
Didn't
manager,
he
even
quit
interim.
in like July,
Yeah,
right?
in the
Yeah,
middle
it
of the
was-
season.
Like on the brink of the playoffs.
And he was complaining that he wasn't paid a lot of money,
Yeah.
and he
Yes,
wasn't
which
paid
he
a lot of
wasn't.
money, but that's his fault.
Right.
Right.
I mean, he didn't
And
have
his
to take
agent's
the
fault.
job.
Get a new
Yes.
agent.
By the way, Brian Price also famously responded
I think it's
to
actually
responded to
Ryan.
a question
Oh, the
with a
incredible-
77 f-bomb rant.
Yeah, in
a couple
3
of years
minutes
ago,
or
yeah.
something
I think it's
like
actually Ryan Price. You sure you have
that. It's
that right?
Brian Price.
Okay.
Let's-
okay.
By
Ryan
the way,
with
the
a
Red
B.
Sox. What was the Red Sox score last night? It was high.
Sox. The Sox.
Yeah.
They won the first game 10-1. They won the second game 9-0. What did they win by last night?
8-2.
Yeah, so the Angels, who some people thought were the best team in the major leagues, have just been drummed by the Red Sox, who are the best team in the major
They
leagues.
appear to be right now.
Right now they are.
Yes. Yes, 16-2 start. That's
Nigel
sort of
is
amazing.
cautiously optimistic.
Well, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
Very happy. I would rather be 16-2 than 2-16.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Bruce Allen is in the news. Steve Sands has to love reading
Oh,
this.
I
in the
don't
Washington
think any
Post today.
Redskins fan was surprised to see this.
According
story.
to a USA Today sports poll of 25 NFL player agents, now that's a small sample size from the 800-plus agents in the league, were asked a variety of questions, including who is the NFL decision maker do you trust the least? Who is the top of that list?
Bruce Allen.
Bruce Allen.
And it was pointed out he deliberately mispronounces his quarterbacks. I mean what that team did to Kirk Cousins is beyond belief.
Yeah.
It's beyond belief. You don't want him, fine. But you know, just awful.
When asked about the team's performance, he responds by talking about
Winning off the field.
Fall
Yeah,
festival.
yeah,
Fall festival.
Harvest Fest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Winning off
Well,
the
that's a
field.
big win.
Yeah.
That's a big win.
A lot of
Gene.
stuff in the
Don't underrate
community.
that.
Can we talk about Lance Armstrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lance,
Okay, I want to involve everybody in this. Lance Armstrong has now settled his lawsuit with the United States Postal Service. Instead of having to pay back $100 million, I think it's $10 million or $12 million, and then a $5 million legal payment for the Floyd Landis stuff.
Right.
And Lance Armstrong apparently has this much money, although he has put his house up for sale. So maybe in order to get the money, he has to do that.
It's like correct, $5 million and then 1.65 to
So
Lance.
that's much less
Yes,
money.
yes.
Much less money. What is Jim? What is the future for Lance Armstrong? And I bring this up, and let me say this because Alex Rodriguez, now a cast member, I don't want to be too harsh here, but Alex Rodriguez lied publicly a number of times about taking steroids to make himself a better baseball player, and now is hailed, and he's very good on TV. So I don't know for how long this onus stays with you. What happens to Lance Armstrong?
It's a steeper mountain than A-Rod. I mean, A-Rod has managed to ingratiate himself. He's actually adored now by a lot of people. And
he's good.
He is really good.
Yes.
I mean, the problem is, what is Lance Armstrong going to do for a next act? I mean, A-Rod could go into the booth. A-Rod's really congenial, really smart in the booth. I'm not sure what Lance is going to do. But also, Lance, his denunciations and his refusals to admit things were so much deeper than anybody else. I mean, it was contemptible, and he really struck out at people who tried to. I mean, it was vicious.
He was aggressive.
It was like mafioso stuff. So
Trumpian.
I mean, there's just a lot of bitterness towards him that I think that you don't see with other people in sports.
I have a crazy, irrational spectrum about steroid users and sexual harassers. And there's some that I cut a break to and some that I don't. I don't want to see Woody Allen movies, but Chuck Close, an artist that I admire very much, I still admire his work. Mm-hmm. And I feel this way, I mean, exactly about A-Rod. Like, I'm happy to cut A-Rod a break because he is likable. But Lance Armstrong, I don't want to see his face. I don't want to hear his voice. And I think very much from what Jim said, he was so holier than thou, and he really went after his attackers in a sort of a mean, vicious,
like
arrogant
organized
way.
defamation campaign.
Yeah, it was really despicable.
With teams of people.
He was also I would say, to the general population, a far greater hero and shining example than Alex Rodriguez ever was.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, he had beaten cancer. That Live Strong I mean, Alex Rodriguez is a baseball player. Hit a bunch of home runs. Lance Armstrong meant something to the culture.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that doesn't.
I can't sort this out in my head why I make these distinctions, especially about the sexual harassers. It's terrible to say. Women around the world, I'm very sorry to be so irrational about this, but.
There were a couple of 60 Minutes pieces on Lance, and when you talked about some of the teammates, some of the people in the whole biking subculture and the threats he made to them and everything else, that's toothpaste out of the tube. You can't forgive it.
So you don't think he comes back on any level?
I mean, look, we're living in a world where, I mean, every single day we see things that, I mean, poor Mitt Romney on an off-camera moment says the number 47%, and it taunted him. Every day somebody
or
says
binders of women.
a thousand times worse, and it's like written in invisible ink. So who knows? There's kind of like little
There are
accountability.
interesting parallels, though. I mean, they were both doing it in sports where it was widely believed that just sort of everyone was doing. Like, I don't think it's the cheating with Lance, to Jim's point. I think the cheating is forgivable. It's the meanness that I think is left with everyone. And he was mean, man. I mean, they were. Those were like evil campaigns to destroy people who were telling the truth
and their families. I mean, he went out there.
I remember Masseuse in particular, whose life he basically
but teammates'
destroyed.
wives who were going to talk about something, or they were concerned about the health repercussions.
Did he come after Greg LeMond as well?
Oh, everybody.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It's just sure. And Greg LeMond's a great. I mean, he's an even better story. I mean, so it's just sad.
Didn't he cheat too, Greg LeMond?
No, I don't think
he didn't cheat.
No, I don't.
Then he's the only.
I think
he's the only one who didn't cheat.
It was back in the day before I think
he didn't cheat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever heard any allegations that he did. Okay. I think he recovered from a shotgun wound to win the Tour de France at one point. I think.
Who shot him, Bobby Knight?
It could have been Bobby Knight. I don't know.
What else?
I have one more story for you, Mr. Tony. This is a headline. We obviously have to do this on Friday. Naked man seen punching cars at Publix in Vero Beach.
Publix are beautiful supermarkets.
Yes.
They're open and airy, and the
wide aisles.
The aisles are so wide.
Great fried chicken.
It's just
good lighting. Great
really
lighting.
like
and you know what they do? They always bag your groceries and they'll take them to your car and they refuse tips.
They're very, very. Do you get a call, Gene?
Yeah, go ahead and take it.
Just take it. Take your call.
It came in on my iPad, which nobody knows that number.
Genie's just getting
Don't
a
ever
call.
call me here.
Can I say something? I want to get a good lawyer Abby.
Michael Cohn's available.
They go down to Florida.
And
Rudy's
I
not.
want to sue robocalls. I mean, I was home yesterday.
Is
trying
that the
to paint-
defendant? Robocalls?
Yes. I was trying to paint yesterday. We must have had 15 robocalls.
They know you were painting?
They
Please.
and they
Can't
get more
you
and more
set-
creative.
Can't you
Artist
set
at
something
work.
up? Can't you set something up on your phone that you hit a little button
Have you
and says,
gotten-
I'm painting?
Have either of you gotten the robocalls from the recording that pretends it's like, hello?
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you there. Like it's a recording, but it pretends like it's
we
a
have been
person
able
voice.
to do this thing where robocalls in our house disappear after one ring. There's some sort of programming thing. I haven't done this.
I need to know
But
how to
when
do
you
that.
get in one, there's one ring,
And then
then
it's-
you wait for a second ring. There is no second ring, and that's because it's a robocall. I don't know how we've done that, but we have that.
Representative.
Finally,
That's 311.
on
We have
caller
311.
ID,
On
this
Wi-Fi.
one number with a fake name called for the 7th or 8th time, and I picked up the phone.
And it wasn't a live person.
It was a live person.
Oh, it was?
And I just gave the most primitive howl,
There you go.
hoping
That'll teach
it's
him.
just
Well, you should keep like an air horn. and
send
then just
him back
answer
to
it.
his cave.
Whenever I answer those, I'm interested in what other people do. Whenever I answer those things and I get somebody asking for money, I go, "Are you paid to do this? Do you get a salary?" And when they say yes, I say, so how could you? What are you trying to guilt me into? You're taking money from dying people. Leave me alone. Do you get that? Do you get those? Are you just patient and nice?
No, there's 2 different 800 numbers that you can call, and you can get your number
Yeah, there's
taken
a
off the
no-call
list,
list.
and then I do it on it. So I don't really get them anymore.
Why
Well,
don't you do
I used
that?
to. Oh, I would put my
Why don't you
number.
put the birds on the phone?
I would put my number on the do not call registry, which is toothless, which does nothing. But every time I hear about one of these numbers that blocks, there's always chinks in the armor where there's a way for robocalls to get in, from what I hear.
They're smarter. Their chemists are better than your
Yeah,
chemists.
absolutely.
I mean, that's
That's
their
right.
business.
The cheaters
Yes.
are ahead of the
That's
dopers
all
are ahead of the
that was very
regulators.
good. Did you do?
I didn't actually get to the story.
Oh,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. That was my
No, go ahead.
outburst of the day.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Well,
when-
her phone rang.
I know.
Yeah.
That was an
With a
important topic.
robocall.
I know. When police arrived to this Publix on US Highway 1 in Vero Beach, they observed Jonathan.
Everybody knows US 1.
Oh, yeah. it
That's
goes
the
from
original.
Maine to, like,
that's the original highway.
Maine
in
to
Florida.
Miami.
They observed.
That brought all the homeless people to Florida.
Yes,
US
it
1.
did. And this might have been one of them. Jonathan Thomas Betcher in the parking lot without a shirt on and his basketball shorts around his knees with no undergarments on.
Ew.
As the police said, the suspect was swinging his arms in the air and screaming loudly, I only had one beer and I only wanted to smoke some pot. And he was sweating uncontrollably. 2 witnesses said they saw Betcher screaming and yelling while kicking trash cans in the parking lot. At one point, he walked into the Publix and shouted, "You're not the one," and then immediately turned around and walked away.
Who is the one?
It's like a Walter
You're
White.
still
There
the
was
one.
nobody in the Publix.
You're still the one.
Sounds like someone laced his weed.
But Betcher was then seen stopping traffic near the Publix while screaming at the vehicles. At one point, he allegedly punched several of them. He told deputies...
Punch the cars.
Punch the cars.
Okay.
Yes. Betcher told deputies that he drank 1 beer and smoked a small amount of marijuana.
No, we don't believe that.
He said he pulled his shorts down because a, quote, a friend had driven by and mooned him, so he was mooning him back.
Tit for tat.
Then the
Yeah.
police said, well, why exactly are you still naked? He said, well, I'm not used to the Florida weather.
Okay. Okay.
Seems reasonable.
That's fine.
Acclimating.
Now, let's get out of here on that. And we'll come back with Old Guy Radio. We'll talk to Jim.
and
What,
I've got to
what,
apologize for the song.
you wouldn't tell me what the song was
I
last
know,
night.
I just-
it's not Snoopy
not
versus the
Snoopy,
Red
is it?
Baron, is it?
It might be.
Oh,
I
no.
hate that
Don't
song.
play that.
I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
Why are you doing this?
Why?
Why did you do this?
And why am I always here when he does it?
Why?
This is actually very important.
No, it isn't.
No, it's not.
Tomorrow.
Here's what's
I think we're
important.
trying to get
Here's
real
what's important.
sponsors for
We
Old
don't
Guy
want to
Radio.
hear this.
Tomorrow is the 100th anniversary when
Baron Richthofen?
Baron von Richthofen was shot down and killed. And this song, as we've discussed
The
many
Royal
times on
Guardsman?
the show, the Royal Guardsman,
One of the worst songs ever made.
Snoopy versus the Red Baron, it is widely considered the definitive pop song about World War I aviation.
Yes, I'll bet it is. Do we have anything else under critical commentary on this?
Yes, actually, it was written by Phil Gernhardt and Dick Holler, and I will explain that in a second why they're important. They never got the licensing rights to use Snoopy, so
Schultz would sue them.
sued him
And win
got,
easy.
got all the profits from it. But
Right.
then later said, if you want to do another song after this, you're more than welcome
No.
to.
I've just
Don't do
spotted
another
the
song.
socialite out there. The socialite's walking into the
Socialite.
kitchen now.
All right.
I think he's going to start cooking.
Oh, that would be great. Get him
Yeah.
back in the
Well,
kitchen.
not
so
for this
Phil
restaurant.
Gernhardt was, who was one of the co-writers of the song, also produced the original version of "Stay" by Morris Williams and the Zodiacs.
Zodiacs, that's a great song.
And Dick Holler, one of his other writing successes, was the tribute song "Abraham, Martin, and John" for Dion. So
Yeah,
there you
that's,
go. But this really
little
was
schmaltzy.
their best song.
Yeah. No, this is a terrible song. We failed to mention in news one other story. Chadwick Boseman, a graduate
Yes.
of Howard University, is
We
going
like.
to he's going to give the commencement address, and he's going to get an honorary doctorate. I wonder if it will be in humane letters. So those are the good ones.
That's
Those are
the
good
one you want.
Jim Miller is here. Jim Miller has written a variety of books that have been bestsellers, including one that I refuse to read, in which I'm in it, about ESPN, which sold 80 million copies, and is now doing for Cadence, and we work for Cadence as well. But I shouldn't say we work for Cadence; we work with Cadence, doing a fabulous podcast that Jeannie listens to,
Very much.
called Origins.
Thank you, Jeannie.
It's great.
How is
No,
it
it's
going?
great.
I mean, it's
While I'm painting.
The critical reviews are so good all the time. How do you like doing it? It must take you a long time to do each one of these.
Well, that's why we're kind of we had a little bit of a delay for a couple months because I was working on something else, but we're coming back with a vengeance for the second half of the year with probably 5 or 6 chapters, new chapters.
How long does it take you to do one?
It takes at least a couple months to do because you're interviewing. I mean, like for Curb Your Enthusiasm, I interviewed Larry and the rest of the cast, and you got to write it and edit, and not everybody's available at the same time, and it's kind of a quixotic, long process, but it's really fun to do, and the one on PTI was fun to do, even though you didn't listen
like
to
that.
it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to hear myself, and I'm sure that other people are lying. And other people's recollections are so different than mine. I'm sure they're true, but I don't have any. I don't remember any of this stuff. How do you choose?
No, you were pretty. I mean, look, there is a Rashomon element to it, obviously, and that happens with the books. That
Yeah.
certainly happened with SNL because there was a lot of drugs involved, so everybody kind of like was remembering things in a weird way. But the PTI episode, so it turns out it's kind of a little bit about the show and a lot about everything else, which is like creativity and organizational behavior and what happens when you get somebody like Eric Rydholm. Like a really,
That's right.
really, it's an amazing thing what happens when you have a smart person who has low levels of ego and paranoia. The world actually can operate at a very high level.
And sticks to his guns too. Was unwavering about the way he wanted to do things.
But here's the other thing about Rydholm is he knows when to pull the gun out of the holster. Like some people, particularly in the ESPN world, they're pulling it all the time. They're going toe to toe and everything else because he doesn't do it that much. When he does it,
It's respected.
It's incredibly impactful, and people know that if he's making a fuss about something, it's really important. And thank God the Mark Shapiros of the world trusted him at key moments because it was just really interesting to see the feedback from people who listened to it because it really is about like a creative subculture, organizational behavior, and like what happens when a really, really smart guy. I mean, I think you said it and Wilbon said it too, which is, I mean, as much as you guys are the secret sauce, without Rydholm, I don't think that thing's on right now.
and Matt Kelleher too.
We have, and certainly Kelleher.
Yeah.
We're in our 17th year, which is
That's
it's
amazing.
just amazing. That a show would last that long. And Eric Rydholm has, certainly on sports television, I don't know about other TV as well, but he's changed the face of it.
Oh, if you look at
He's
cable
changed
news,
the
they got
face
the
of
Yeah,
it.
they got
that's
the
definitely
Yeah.
bliss.
And this is, remember, Kelleher talks. He does a really funny story about being in Bristol and coming down to Washington. And it's like people saying you can't go down.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. The show's never going to last. Are you sure you can get back? I mean, it's kind of emblematic of that think at the time, But it was really a lot of fun. And it turns out there's a really bunch of smart people involved with that show.
The other segment that I really liked, Jim, was the college game day segment because I sort of came late to college football. I really haven't been an avid fan till maybe the last 5 years. And the evolution of that show fascinated me, how they choose where they go and the sort of pressure to choose where they go. It's very, very interesting.
Oh, thanks. The funny thing about College Game Day and PTI, they both share one kind of central ingredient, which is they're both outside the big ESPN ecosystem. And so, like, if you're doing, I mean, poor Jamel and Michael Smith, I mean, if you're going on to, like, Sports Center, that's a rich target area. Everybody wants to fire at you and poke holes, and you got to hold up the tradition and stuff. College Game Day and PTI were both started, kind of outside the system. And by the way, how ironic and how interesting is it that both of them are thriving successes, and the Sports Center franchise is basically, in intensive care right now.
But getting a little bit better. I mean, numbers, I'm told, are a little bit better.
Well, listen, there was a huge paradigm shift because there was a, DC2, which was this big digital studio that's gigantic. I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it's like football.
I try
fields.
not to go up there.
I understand. That's why I said I
Yeah.
won.
Try.
But the truth is that when they built that, I don't know if you remember, but Sports Centers, it was like it was so cavernous and all these big camera movements and big screens.
The
and
anchors looked very small.
the
on
anchors
it.
look like a grain of sand on
Yeah.
a
They
beach.
did. They
And as a
did.
result, it's like nowadays when we can get all our information on the phone, the Sports Center should be like Fallon and Kimmel and everybody else. You're tuning in for personalities, which is why I think if they were smart, they would just give the 6 o'clock Sports Center to Keith and Dan, bring them back, and make it about personalities.
I have to tread lightly because at any time I can be suspended for something.
And
that
then
I
you'll
say.
have to go to
But
Bristol.
how? I'll preface this by saying, a long time ago, when I worked at the New York Times, whenever there was a question about Major League Baseball policies, people didn't call Major League Baseball because they felt they wouldn't get the right answer. And they were referred to Murray Chass, who was the lead baseball reporter at the New York Times, because he knew more about baseball than anybody in baseball. How do you know so much about ESPN? And everybody says, don't call them. You call Jim Miller. How has this over the years? I mean, is there ever a part of you that says, I've got to separate from this? It's too much. I don't want to know this anymore. I'm out.
No, it's too damn interesting. I mean, it's one of the most successful media stories of all time. It's incredibly organic. Every single day, there's something going on there, and they're not small issues. And I mean, obviously, what happened with Skipper was gigantic, Shakespearean,
Yes,
and
yes.
completely unexpected. And so it just seems like there's always something of interest. And it also shows that what's going on at ESPN is kind of like a window into the larger content world, right? I mean, we saw things that happened at ESPN that kind of like led the way for other things that we're seeing in different areas of media, and everybody all of a sudden switching to digital and streaming and all these things. So ESPN,
Is there a future? Is there a future for cable sports television?
Yes, but it's going to be fundamentally different. I mean, the ESPN that we saw from 1993 to 2010, I don't think will ever exist in terms of certainly the profitability. Certainly the profitability. And Wall Street figured that out with Disney. I mean, they're going to figure out ways, ESPN Plus, which debuted like a week ago, and they're trying to get $5 now a month.
Yeah.
They lost 12 million households at $7.70 a month. That adds up. So they're trying to figure out new ways to succeed. They're trying to figure out new ways to do Sports Center.
But it still has, ESPN still, it's the Kleenex. It's the name.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, when you think of sports in America, and this is obvious from what's happened with Fox Sports and NBC Sports, ESPN has that name. It's the trust factor. You can go to it at any time. I would think that helps it, even in dire times.
Well, it's been tough. The trust factor's been tough a little bit because I think there have been a lot of people who have waged a rather effective war with ESPN in terms of it having a political agenda, which I don't believe it does. But I think the bigger thing that happened was John Skipper engineered all these. He didn't just make a deal with like the Pac-10 or like the big, like it was like multi-years. They spent over $25 billion on college football for like sometimes 6, 8, 10, 12 years. So ESPN,
But that college football championship game is a big moneymaker, big rate.
ESPN is a big moat. I mean, when Fox wanted to compete against them, it's like, go ahead, compete, but you can't buy the rights to anything. Good luck. And Skipper understood the power of live. And so we don't know, for instance, whether The Voice is going to be a popular hit on television 4 years from now, but we do know people are going to watch the Rose Bowl, or people are going to want to watch the college football playoffs.
Yeah.
And that was the real brilliance of Skipper, I think, more than anything else, engineering these long-term deals. And they paid a lot. But that is a lot of Teflon for ESPN.
So when you do Origins, how do you choose what you're going to do? And is there something out there that if you could do that because you think it's so inaccessible, you would do it more than anything else out there?
Look, the next 5 or 6 are going to be music and politics, another TV show, a movie. I like doing things that I'm, really, really interested in. And I think also, I think it has to have a great story to it. That's one of the things that I loved about PTI, which was that nobody really gave it a chance. And it started from the most humble, beginnings. Look, you didn't even... I know you won't listen to it, but you have a great thing in there, which is like, hey, you said to Wilbon said, we're going to do the TV show. And you go, what TV show? And no, it's never going to last. Who's going to watch us?
That's right.
Are you
Who's gonna
crazy?
watch
You're
us?
out of your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, you, in many ways, you were the biggest doubter of PTI.
Sure.
Which, of course, good news travels slow in your world, but that's okay. It's interesting to see, your arc. Because like at one point you were like, hey, wait a second, people are mentioning this to me. And Wilbon said, I'm like stopped at an airport and somebody's calling me and somebody's saying this. And then all of a sudden, the cable went out at the White House for a second. And like President Bush was like, wait, I can't watch PTI. It's like, oh, hold on, somebody's noticing us.
That was that's...
Can I mention, you guys mentioned PTI and Game Day. I would also commend to our listeners, it was a multi-part one, but the 30 for 30 Origins was also tremendous.
Oh,
I mean,
thank
you talk
you.
about a great story in and of itself, and it got me thinking to like, I actually would like to hear like an Origins of Origins. I wonder if there's like...
It's a dark
who
world.
would play your role? I wonder maybe we can get Tony to do your role for that one.
We'd have to have therapists involved and lots of Jewish people from Brooklyn.
But
And let me put one more plug in for Jim. If you are an aspiring journalist, to listen to Jim's interviews and his preparedness is a lesson for you. Absolutely. I mean, he knows exactly which question comes when, but it never sounds packaged or pre-arranged.
Thank you,
It's
Judy.
very, very
It was
interesting.
That was a weird thing with the Skipper interview because he talked to me for the first time after he left, and there were a couple of moments when I just had to go. I mean, not that I had a script, but when you push somebody to, because he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to talk about the exact circumstances that made him leave, and then he finally did with me, and it was tough because you also respect the person, but it's like, wait a second, this story is not making sense, man. We got to figure it out. And he was really terrific afterwards about it, even though he had said more than he wanted to. But thank you for that.
Jim's podcast is called Origins. Our podcast is called the Tony Kornheiser Podcast. we don't even have a good name.
Oh, by the way, we have a thing now called Origins Originals, which is the unvarnished interview, and you and Wilbon are coming up next week. So it's the full Kornheiser.
Did I curse?
Uh-oh.
I hope I didn't
Yeah,
curse.
sounds like
You'll be
potential
fired.
trouble.
Yeah, I'll be in trouble. All right, let's get out of here. We will come back. We will have a jingle and we will have some email. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
I never find at the refugee my grapefruit juice or cottage cheese, but suddenly littles are helping me to win at Monopoly. 'Cause I've got a Safeway ticket. I've got a chance to win another house. I never get the piece I need, like Bryce Harper trying to find his ring, but suddenly $25 are mine. Oh, what an amazing thing, 'cause I've got a Safeway ticket. I've got a chance to win another bathrobe, Nigel.
Sent in by Elliot Olshansky, performed by Brad Weiss. Says, I live in an area where the dominant grocery chains are ShopRite and Stop and Shop. particularly after the demise of Walbaum's A&P and Pathmark. I'm unable to contribute to your quest for victory in the Safeway Monopoly game. What I can contribute, however, are the lyrics for this jingle performed by Brad Weiss, and based on your reaction to recent gifts of game pieces, I imagine you'll enjoy this more anyway. Best regards from Suffolk County, where I hope that baby boy Bootsy is enjoying the picture book I sent with the lyrics to Sunrise Sunset. You read my inscription on the show, but never said what the book was. Do you remember the name of the book?
Yes. You just read the name of the book.
Sunrise Sunset.
Yes.
Oh, but it's not Sunrise Sunset from Fiddler on the Roof. Sunrise Sunset.
No, it is.
Oh, it is
This
Sunrise.
yes.
Oh, so that's the book is Sunrise Sunset.
Correct.
Well, I didn't look through it. It's for a baby.
You were too busy reading about Simon the Cat.
Simon the Cat. Let me thank Jason Lockenfor of CBS Sports for coming on the show. Let me thank Jim Miller for sitting in with us. And no, Gary, I'm not thanking you. I would also like to thank.
You're not thanking us anymore.
Don't deserve it.
Your phone rang. I would also like to thank our sponsors from today, Harry's Razors, First Leaf Wines. Remember to listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Tony Kornheiser Show, wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play. If you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. From Greg in Washington, D.C., Greg Schimmel. I had a David Aldridge moment during my editing shift at the Washington Post sports desk the other night when the name Anthony Kornheiser flashed on my office phone's caller ID. Sure enough, it was you, truly in a minor panic, calling in to ask what channel the Wizards playoff game was on. Our first print deadline was coming up in about 15 minutes, and you had a game to watch, so it didn't seem like the ideal time to drop a lacheserie and start a discussion about your podcast, but I had a feeling our conversation would come up again. Sure enough, again, I had a second David Aldridge moment when you recounted our chat in the open of your next show. You said my name was Chris instead of Greg, but otherwise, you relayed all the details as I remembered them. Anyway, happy to help, even if everybody on the show made fun of you for asking for it. P.S. If the Wizards make it to Game 5 and the Caps make it to Game 7, you may have a similar problem on Wednesday the 25th.
It is somehow reassuring to know that the news aides in sports still have to pick up the phone and talk to jerks like you.
Yeah. From Adam Moore in Red Hook, New York. Dear Hoff Waff, let me get this straight. You couldn't find the correct channel on your television, so you telephoned your newspaper, and it worked? What a world. Yes, it worked. From Kyle Swan in Sacramento, California. I sat down to watch the new Roseanne show, but I couldn't find it on the air. So I did the obvious thing. I called the Washington Post to ask them for the right channel. Surprisingly unhelpful. I wonder if you could provide Chris's direct line there, whoever he is. Thanks in advance. Well, it's actually Greg, as we find out. Brian in Charlotte writes, so glad to hear from Luke that things aren't that bad at the DMV. I mean, there are at least isolated conversations across that border. I've always felt that those guys were just trying to do their job. Why do we always have to give the folks at the DMV such a hard time? From the Reverend Peter J. Roy, who signs his name Pastor Pete, like Pastor Tim.
Right.
We have the same channels. I listened to your rant trying to find the Wizards game, and you were rattling off all the same sports channels and corresponding digits that are located on my cable box here in Gettysburg.
It's like an Aldridge
That
moment.
means you can make the trip to historic Gettysburg, stop at my Sheets for gas, which I do, get some good gas station food, and then stay at my house with my 6 kids and my dog, eat ice cream over my sink and watch my TV, and be able to find or not find, as the case may be, any televised sports you want. So when should I expect you? I will hang up and listen.
I might have to stop by tomorrow on my way back from
You're going to
Carlisle.
that golf.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's unbelievable that I told you
How
again.
is a golf course in Pennsylvania part of the Maryland State Golf
And it's not
Association?
just over the border in Pennsylvania.
It's
Carlisle is at least a full hour into Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it doesn't
Definitely
Due
stopping
north.
off at a
By the
Sheetz,
way,
though.
for Pastor Pete, I'm camping with the boys in Gettysburg next weekend. And
Fantastic.
Spike and Ike, by the way, Bring Your Child to Work Day will be in here next Thursday. For those that want to come meet
And-
Spike and Ike. Why do you roll your eyes?
I told you,
Some would
Gary.
love to
you
meet
could
Spike.
Bring your daughter
Just
to
one.
work day was the Larry King story.
Yeah.
The Duke Ziebert Larry King story.
the
Why is
lettuce.
that man spitting his food all the time? Scott Moffitt in Richmond, Virginia. Dear Bootsy's grandpa, I'm going to a wedding this weekend. What should I yell after the officiant says you can kiss the bride, Lacheserie or Old Yeller him? I will hang up and listen.
That's a good question.
Josh Cromwell, Moselle, Mississippi, was one of the rats that was caught and eaten by Simon the Sea Cat named Raju by any chance.
Believe there
Mike
was.
from Burke, Virginia. Let's say it together. And can I get Netflix on my TV? It almost sings. And can I get Netflix on my TV? Of course you can. Just call the Netflix company. They're going to have to dig up your lawn to lay down the Netflix piping, and they'll have to hang a Netflix meter on the side of your house, but you can get it. 1 step forward, 8 steps back. Kevin in Northeast. Today's show was amazing. Tony, where do we stand on Drake? Chris, I like Drake, but I could do with a little less of him. Yeah. The Tony Kornheiser Show. Come for the pop culture references. Stay for the crippling irony. If you're out on your bike time, everyone, as always, do wear white.
If I wish one of your guys had children, if I could kick them in the head or stomp on their testicles so you can feel my pain, because that's the pain I have, waking up every day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
chasing circles now over the same old ground, the same old burnt out scene. For how long I can't tell. Look in my eyes and see there's nothing left of me. I did not need your help. I brought this all on myself. For too